We return to the Sermon on the Mount, and with verse 20 of Matthew chapter 5, we begin a new section in the sermon, a section that will last until verse 48. Here Jesus takes up the role more fully of a teacher of the law. He explains the law to the disciples and the crowds who were listening to him. Indeed, he takes up the role of a new, better, more authoritative Moses. In his discourse, Jesus moves to explain in more detail what he meant a few verses earlier in Matthew 5:17, when he said that he did not come to abolish the law or the prophets, but to complete them. And Jesus gives us 5 examples of what he means. Every time an example is introduced, Jesus uses the same turn of phrase, or a similar one. You have learned how it was said to our ancestors, ... but I say this to you, ... Central to the argument that Jesus makes is the first line of today's Gospel. If our virtue does not surpass that of the Pharisees and scribes, we will not get into the kingdom of heaven. In some translations, that is rendered as righteousness, if your righteousness doesn't surpass, or justice, and we could render it as good habits as well. The Pharisees taught quite simply, and in a sense quite reasonably, that to attain justice before God, one had to keep all the norms and regulations of the law in a very scrupulous manner. But to keep all the laws in a very legalistic way placed an enormous burden on the faithful. And Jesus, in some places, does criticize that attitude, that legalistic frame of mind that just put burden on people. So he gives us the first example of what he means. You have heard that it was said to our ancestors, you shall not kill. Well, the Pharisees, but also many Christians, would think, well, I do not kill. I haven't killed anyone. I am, on that front, at peace with God. I have justice in God's eyes. But Jesus actually says that we should remove from ourselves the causes that could lead us to kill. Anger, hatred, desire for revenge, even insults, and as we see from the Gospel reading, very mild insults at that. He compares the treatment of somebody that has killed, who is tried before the court, to the same treatment for somebody that has just insulted a brother or has been angry with them. Tried before the court of God. So we should remove hatred, desire for revenge, vengeance from our hearts. And in that way, we can begin to understand what Jesus means when he says our justice has to go deeper. But he says something further still. It's not good enough to remove those things and refrain ourselves from doing something. We have to intentionally seek reconciliation, intentionally seek justice for others. The legalistic frame of mind, which could dominate our attitude towards religion, is pushed aside by Jesus. In the example of killing, Jesus encourages us, or calls us, commands us to have a better and a proactive sense of justice towards others. A sense of peace with others. And the higher sense of justice Jesus calls us to have, well, we call it love.